Time for the salute. Niko, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, what's going on, peeps? Just happy to be here. I got my 20 ounce Juan Valdez, the Colombian mountains within the mug. That is the one today. It's my 20-ounce cup because today I've had no time. This first one, but it's 20 ounces. I might be halfway down. This mug says I got no time but to fill that cup one time and move on with my day. Needed to get down here, talk to my guys from SDH, and here I am.
All right, so let's break it all down. I was discussing before you came on how we talked about hot seats, and I know that we got to talk about what's going on in Seattle because the roster is one man lighter. There was a trade that happened right at the end, right at the edge of the deadline, and Javier Arreaga no longer a part of the discussion with you on a daily basis. What in the grand scheme of things does this mean, not having Arreaga around and him going off into other places inside Major League Soccer?
Well, look, honestly, it's a long time coming. This actually should have happened before the season even started. He's been in the trade block for, I want to say, year and a half, about a year, coming into the season by simply bringing in Nathan and even Bell from San Luis City. I think the plan was we're going to have a couple of guys that are going to come in and take the spots of AB Sissoko, who obviously no longer with the team. And it all appeared that the starting duo was going to be Yamar, Jackson Reagan, and then the backups were going to be Nathan, then, maybe Bell, maybe if necessary in a three-man back line, Nuhu, and then Javi was going to be moved. However, I feel like the Sounders, Craig Weibold, the front office, might have maybe not necessarily maybe they had the offers that did not fulfill what they were looking for.
Yeah.
I think that maybe they overestimated the value of Javier Arreaga. Maybe they gambled by saying, hey, we're going to push this out all the way down to the last day of the trade window where teams are desperate, where maybe there's injuries to rosters, and we'll get the best value out of Javier Arreaga. The only counter to that, counter effect, counterproductive point is that Javier never played. And you can't, add value to a player that is sitting on your bench. And then in the last game as a Sounder, he has a bad turnover in front of the 18 where he tries to take on two Vancouver attackers in a press situation, loses the ball, results in a goal. Lucky for the Sounders, that didn't matter. And the New England Revolution were in such dire need and in such an awful position that they decided to pick up the player. Now, this is not a knock on Javier Arreaga. I think that a lot of the mistakes, especially that one, goes to lack of confidence, maybe trying to do too much because you don't really get the minutes. Brian Smetzer even himself mentioned after the postgame that it had to do with lack of play time. So Revolution takes them. I think Seattle does a big-time move because they take off the entire salary of the books. They get an international spot for 2025. Overall, they make about $1 million, a little bit over $1 million in cap space for the summer window. So that's a big move. They had the guys. They knew that they were going to be without him. So there isn't really a backlash to the team because he wasn't really supposed to be part of the plan. So I think everybody wins. Javier Arreaga himself wins because, to me, he is a starter in New England. He should walk into a starting position, something he didn't have here. He needed a change of atmosphere. He needed a change of scenery. And you could see it in his face, in his demeanor. He was working extremely hard. And look, honestly, training sessions have looked really well for him. And prior to that mistake against Vancouver, when the Sounders called his name, I thought he played very well. So all in all, it was the right move at the right time for everyone involved, including the player, including both clubs. So I just think this is a positive for absolutely everybody. There's no negative, no problem. Seattle is going to continue to move on without him. There was a lot of praising him because he was a part of the 2019 championship. He helped in the CCL run. He's a guy that was always positive and happy. And even when he was brought in as a player that was going to be a prospect and a future starter, he seemed like there was always someone in front of him. There was always Shane O'Neill or Kim Ki-hee or Jackson Reagan. He seemed like he never really was given that role, like maybe Chad and Yeimar and even Roman. I mean, he just never had that chance. So I'm just glad that he's gone. He's moved on, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Before you came on, I was mentioning the current state of affairs for Seattle outside of Javier Arreaga's departure. To folks who have followed Major League Soccer over any period of time, looking at this start for Seattle, we've seen it before. So I don't know if we're just numb to it and understanding that there are seasons where Seattle gets off to a slow start. And you look at what's going on, everybody sits there in another 15 matches or so, which would put you with about 10 or 12 to go. Everyone's freaking out about Seattle. They're below the playoff bar, and you got the gnashing of teeth. You have the hands and the wringing of the hands, and people are cracking their knuckles and trying to figure out what's wrong. And then you get the zombie Sounders run where they sneak into the playoffs, even though that's not sneaking. They get into the playoffs, they make the run, and everything's right with the world. Is this another one of those years where when you're out of the blocks at 1-4-3, you're not scoring double-digit goals, you've scored 9 goals in 8 matches, and you're 6 points out of a playoff spot at the quarter pole? Is there any concern among fans, or is this just like, yeah, we've seen this before, we know what's happening, and they're counting on that run that we've seen so many times in the past?
Oh, no, there's definitely, I mean, that's a big convoluted question that I'm going to have to answer in its entirety if you will give me the time.
Go for it,
look, the fans are desperate, and fans are rightfully indignant with this whole situation. They are upset. They feel like the team is not living up to their expectations, and they should be. And fans, even Brian Smetzer and everybody in this organization has said, look, fans have every right to voice their concerns, and if they're not pleased with the results and not pleased with the play on the field, they should be able to bring it out. So there's definitely at this moment in time, and the majority of those that have reached out to me and have commented, and I had a space this week on X where I allowed some of the fans to talk and voice their concerns. A lot of them are kind of thinking this is going to be just a season that's not going to end up with the team either with a championship or maybe even missing the playoffs. And I understand that thought process because two things. As part of your question, you mentioned that people are trying to wonder what's wrong with the Sounders.
Yeah.
I think that is a lot simpler than maybe people think, right? I mean, I've been saying since last year, since the departure and almost certain departure of Nicolás Odero, that this was going to be the end of an era, of a golden generation, of a team that in the last decade went to 4 MLS finals, won a CCL. I mean, they were the top of the crop. This was a team that was unbelievable. There was, how many times did I try to ask Garth about, can they be a dynasty? And if they win maybe 1 or 2 of those other titles, then they will certainly be a dynasty. And, they're still in the conversation of it. But that was going to come to an end. And this team got the right players at the right time and locked them in. Jordan Morris on a young contract, same as Christian Roldan, blowing up. Alex Roldan, he was so good when he first came in, and he very low on salary. You had Raul, you had Niko, but all of that was going to come to an end, and that's what happened last season. Niko leaves. This team, I think this year has lacked a lot of leadership on the field, and we'll get to that because it was talked about this week by the captain of today, Stephen Fry. But I think that's how simple it is. I just think it's the end of an era, it's the end of a golden generation. Seattle today in the roster has good players. Good players, right? I mean, I think Jordan's still a good player. I think Albert Rusnak's still a good player. I think Joe Paulo is a very good player. But there's just no game changer. There's no X factor. A guy that's just going to walk in and just take over. You look at the Western Conference, and LA Galaxy has a couple of game changers between Ricky and Pencil. I mean, there's some game changers there. You look at Arcel. Chicharango's a monster. He's a menace. Gomez has been so good. Vancouver has done it with maybe less X factors, although, I mean, I guess Ryan Gold, as so many like to call him, the Irish Messi or something like that is what I heard, or something like that. I mean, it's interesting that they maybe don't have those big time players, but they have done it with the good system. So in conclusion, Seattle doesn't have that guy. Pepa was supposed to be that guy. Pedro Leviga was supposed to be the player that was going to come in and give you something differently. Unfortunately for Seattle, he's been hurt. We just heard from Brian this week that he's going to be out another 4 weeks. That's another month for him to just step into the field. So you got to give him time to get in rhythm. So you might not be without your young DP, your X factor, for over a month, because I'm not going to say that it's going to be 4 weeks. So with all those circumstances, Seattle just doesn't have enough to get out of this funk, I don't think. And when in 2016, Siggy Smith was let go, that wasn't the only factor. The reality is that you were going to bring in a guy like Nicolas Odero that put his team on his shoulders, and he was the newcomer of the year that season. You don't have that this year. Maybe could you think that Pepo is going to be 100% healthy and be that guy? Maybe, but the odds aren't high because we don't know where he's at health-wise, and people are starting to be concerned if he's ever going to be 100% healthy. And now with this $1 million in cap, can the Sounders go out there and get a guy that's pretty good? Yeah, I think so. But it's not going to be a DP. That's just not the reality unless they move some guys, unless they move Raul, unless they move Albert. But I just don't foresee it. So because of that, I think Seattle's going to barely make the playoffs. I think they're going to fight. They're going to grind. They're going to get in the playoffs. But I do not see them coming up top of the Western Conference. They just don't have the roster right now. They don't have that X factor. He's a good roster. But right now, there's just better ones in the West.
So then is Columbus the man right now in your mind, considering what they did in addition to everything in Major League Soccer, considering what they did to Monterrey last night in the Triple C, getting a 2-1 win? Is Columbus the man right now to you?
Columbus been the man. Columbus told you they were the man when they brought in Cucho Hernandez and they figured out how to bring in Diego Rossi because they knew that Salara John was going to be gone. When they went and got Wilfred Nancy, when they built this fantastic structure and a team that went out there and just bullied Monterrey yesterday with their own play and their ability to connect space and match the physicality of Monterrey. And when they had to absorb pressure, they did. And when they had to get on the counter and move, it was just poetry in motion with, Cucho and Rossi and Bro. I thought he had a great game. I mean, they've been the man. And if you hadn't seen it, then you better check yourself or you wreck yourself because it was always going to be Columbus. When I saw this CCL Cup, CCL, you can't say that. When I saw this CONCACAF Cup matchups, everybody was talking about Messi and friends. Oh, they're the team that's going to come out. They're the team that's going to take over. I only saw Columbus. It was always going to be them. They just had a balanced roster. They had an identity. They had a soccer module. They had a guy like Wilfred that was willing to play with fire and Sid Cucho and still was able to get out of that elimination round. I mean, man, they just have it all. So, yes, Columbus is the man. They're going to continue to be the man until they get knocked down in the ring. And I just don't know if there's anybody that can do that right now.
And I mean, right now you look at the East, and yes, Messi and friends are on top, but they've also played the most matches. And one of the other things, and this was another one of the reasons that having you on every Thursday is for me, it's a good chance to educate and to let everybody into the inner workings of Major League Soccer. Messi and friends with Chris Henderson and David Beckham pulling the strings and bringing in personnel. What we need, and this is something that we've championed for a long time, and it reinforced it yesterday and the last 2 days with bringing in Matias Rojas. Mm-hmm. We need to have a greater sense of transparency as to how these deals continue to get done, because all it does is it feeds the beast, and you bring in the black helicopters and you're wondering how is this happening, where they bring in all the players and it doesn't stop. I mean, it literally is like Major League Soccer's version of the Terminator, and it absolutely will not stop. You get an injury, you bring in somebody else. You get an injury, you bring in somebody else. And you sell off DeAndre Yedlin to Cincinnati for one of the oddest allocation money figures I've ever seen, which to me at the time showed me how much against the cap they were, and yet they keep dealing and dealing and dealing. Having somebody like Chris Henderson to pull those financial strings has to have been a godsend for them, because of this jam that they keep getting into, but they keep adding folks to get out of it.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that they're able to do this stuff.
And I'm with you. I guess there'll never be a day where there's full transparency with the books. And I understand where you're coming from, but that's just something that no owner is going to want out there. But I think it does go back to what you said. Is Chris Henderson understanding how to utilize the salary cap? I mean, he learned from the best, Dr. Strange himself, Garth Lagerwey. And because of that, I think that when you combine that experience plus his knowledge of the league and his network of scouting that was always fantastic here in Seattle, it just makes a bad mother, Paul Fiction type. It just does. That's just plain and simple. Combined with the open checkbook with blank checks of, here you go, just do whatever you want. And oh, by the way, you can just say, hey, why don't you come and play with Messi? I mean, that's a pretty good perk, right? I mean, it's, oh, you don't like Messi? How about Sergio Busquets? That'd be fun, right? Or Luis Suarez, do you like him? He'll sign your jersey. I mean, all these kids are coming to play, and, it could very well be for a lot less than they can make anywhere else, just for the chance to play with the GOAT. So, it's just so much going on right for Inter Miami that they could go out there and reach absolutely anybody. And it's kind of in LAFC is a separate situation, right? Is the lights, is the city, is the money. We've, had our concerns and scratched our heads about that book and how they make certain things happen in the past. So is that going to happen? Probably not. I don't think that's going to be as much of an issue, because I do believe that there are going to be changes with the salary cap. They're going to be adding some adjustments to it, and maybe that's just going to make it a lot more palatable for us to understand when guys like that come in, and a team like Inter Miami that just seems to have an ace under their sleeve, and we've already seen 6 aces in the deck, and we're like, where are these aces coming from? Is it an ace of stars? Like, that's not even a card. So it's that's kind of what it is.
Eastern Conference right now, Red Bulls are second at 16 points. And it's a logjam. Both conferences right now, you're at the quarter pole. It's a logjam. 7 points in the East, separating 10 from 1. And then if you pull, Messi and friends out of the hat, then second to 11th is separated by 6 points. Western Conference, you'd mentioned LAG with the protein power pack, the 3P of Puig, Peck, and Paintsel. They're at the top right now. Vanni Sartini in Vancouver, in his system, doing it the way that they want. They've got guys that fit what they want to do. They're not pulling guys in saying, hey, square peg, fit into this round hole. It is doing it the way that Sartini wants it done, and they're doing well so far. RSL, you mentioned Chicho Arango. Colorado, Chris Armas is out to a solid start right now at 15 points. And
Yeah, starting to cook.
Yeah.
That's another team that they went and spent, and they brought talent, and we questioned it. It didn't look good. What was smelling out of the kitchen was just the onion and the garlic and the stuff they were just starting to prep, and now they're putting in their chicken and their rice, and now it's smelling pretty good, and now they're cooking. That team is beginning to pull the results. You're starting to see Jordy get some traction. And in general senses, this team was pretty new, so we should have known that there was going to be a little bit of a learning curve, new coach, new system, new everything, and now they're putting it together. So those are the things that Seattle is going to have to kind of fight with. I look at the standings and I see Timbers at 11, and I look at that roster, and that's not a roster for an 11th place team. So that's probably another squad that's going to continue to get better and continue to get better. And I told you guys about Santi Moreno. He's getting hot, and Anthony and Evander just looks like the weight of his shoulder of maybe, I don't know, leaving to South America or that being an option just off. And now he's just playing nice and cool and chill, and he just seems to do no wrong. So that's a tough Western Conference. Houston is where they're at, and Ache just got his first minutes, and they've had a whole bunch of injuries, and no Quinones, and guys they haven't even replaced, like Barrett. They're going to bring in a striker, so they're just getting better, and that's kind of the situation that, going back to where we started, puts Seattle at such a tough position, because when you're in a deficit of points and everybody around you is just getting better, even when you as a club and as a team start to get some traction, it might just be too late. I mean, in our space, in our X space yesterday, had Jeremiah Oshan of Sounder Hard with us, and he said, look, at some point it just becomes a mathematical issue, mathematical problem. It's just, you just don't have enough points, and now you have 2 road games back to back. That's difficult, man. It's tough.
Yeah, and the way things are in each conference right now, you have a good week, you rocket up the table. You have a bad week, you could go from 2 to 10 or 3 to 11 or something like that. Time to play the game, and it is not necessarily the Price is Right. Although I will say that with you doing as well as you did last week, I know that one match in particular where we were staring at a total and going, you've got to be kidding me. Easiest play on the board, take the over in the Cali Classico at 3.5, and it ended up going at 7. So that was the easiest play on the board for anybody. Let's roll through the matches. If there's one you want to talk about, you yell stop and we talk about it. Start things off, and it is all on Saturday. It is all stuff on Saturday. There is nothing going on, because then you end up in the midweek with matches that have been postponed. So it is all on Saturday here, starting at 1:45 Eastern. Austin, dog at home. LAG on the road at a plus 127. I think you can take the over again there, because you're going to take.
And I say point because I want you to give me the breakdown on the goals, because the LA Galaxy have not just won 3 of the last 5 in Austin, but 3 of the last 5 between these two have had more than 3 goals. Was a 3-3 draw, or if it's a 3-1. I mean, for the LA Galaxy side, these teams have gone back and forth, and both of these teams really lack a defensive consistency. And I would think LAG is going to win this pretty easily, but maybe Austin scores 1 or 2 on this defense. So it's going to be a big one. So give me the compos on the goals.
3.5 over under at a plus 126. That's where it starts. So that's when it flips from a minus to a plus. 4.5 is a plus 277.
Ooh, too rich for me. That sounds like a sucker's bet. So give me the 3.5 with the LA Galaxy, and I'll lock that in.
There you go. So he locks that one in right out of the blocks. It's going to be a lunchtime kick at Q2. Crew hosting CF Montreal, the Wilfred Nancy Bowl. Crew heavy favorite at a minus 192. Seattle on the road at DC. Seattle an underdog. DC's a plus 131.
Ooh, what's the number on Seattle?
Plus 192 in the composite.
I don't know if it's good enough for me. Look, there's a lot of turmoil in Seattle right now. I said I was going to touch a little bit on this. Stefan Fry mentioned that he had a players-only meeting with the team. That tells me something that I've been wanting to hear, and it's, we got to make a change. I keep hearing it's still early. We're okay. We're going to be fine. Trust the process. It's too late for that. It's over. It's over. It's not early in the tournament. You gotta get going. These teams are getting going. I finally heard Jordan Morris say yesterday, "Are we against the wall?" Yes, we're against the wall. Good. Now you come and attack like a rabid badger because you're cornered. That's what this team needs, is a little fire in their behind. And look, if Nico Moreno got to take the heat because, hey, Brad Spencer has come straight at me, quoting my tweets and all of these things. Hey, you know what? I'll be that guy. It's okay. I got to ask the questions. I got to, bring up the stuff. Steph from Fry called the people that were talking about Joe Paulo not being backed up by his friends, that it was just BS, that they don't know the locker room. Hey, look, you know what? That's just what I see. Oh no. Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Oh, man.
I've had that happen so many times. It's an old tripod that I got to fix, but it's all right. That's part of it. That means, Nico, be quiet about the Sounders.
Wow.
I'm not taking this one at all. I don't want anything to do with these bet. I do think DC United kind of has the odds on their side, and I think they do end up winning this game, but it'll be a heartbreaker. I think Seattle will play well. I think Seattle will score, but at the end of the day, I think DC is just too much on the offensive side.
All right, so let's continue to rock and roll through the grid here. Cincinnati hosting Colorado. Cincinnati's on the minus side. Messi and friends are at New England. Messi and friends are favored at a plus 114. NYC on the minus side hosting Charlotte. Red Bulls are on the minus side heavy at a minus 154 hosting Vancouver. Vancouver on the road is a plus 400 at Red Bull Arena. Draws a plus
400.
Draws a plus 293.
What's the draw?
Plus 293.
Ooh, I'm going to go with the draw. That 400 looks good because, look, this Vancouver team is 3-0 on the road. And we talked about systems. Their system has been working, but so has the Red Bulls. And I feel like the Red Bulls have enough of a effective press and counter press to make things a lot harder for Vancouver. Look, Vancouver came to Lumen Field and did not blow Seattle off the field. I mean, they kind of had some turmoil and they kind of melted down. The Seattle Sounders did, and they kind of gave up this game, from the red card of Jackson Reagan to then later the red card to Alex Roldan. I mean, that just was self-inflicted wounds. Were they really dangerous? Seattle was, not really. But I don't think Vancouver really, that 2-0 score doesn't tell you the whole story of it. So because of that, I'll stick with the draw. I think that the Red Bulls are really good. I think Vancouver has a system. I think that's a good draw for me.
Orlando City, the purple team, hosting Toronto FC south of the border. They're a massive favorite at a minus 200. Union favored at home against RSL. Fire favored at home against Atlanta United. Fire's a plus 123. Atlanta United's a plus 184.
Atlanta's a plus 184 in this one?
Uh-huh.
Is it the injuries? I mean, man, Chicago just, I don't know if they could, beat, a USL team at this point. They just shoot themselves in the foot, man. I might take Atlanta on that one, maybe like a 2-0 win. Nothing crazy, nothing outrageous. But yeah, man, I'd be willing to take Atlanta on that one. And then you mentioned RSL. I wanted that one. RSL Philadelphia. What's that one looking like?
Plus 277 on the draw. Plus 272 RSL to win.
Give me RSL. Okay. Give me RSL to win. RSL has been a nightmare for Philadelphia in just the overall head-to-head. This RSL team, I don't need to say it again, is one of my favorites. I love the roster build. Love Chicho Arango. He's coming from just being dominant, just scoring, assisting, intercepting passes, his press. He could play as a false 9, as a 10, as a 9. I mean, he could do it all. Gomez is heating up. This is one of those other things that I got to pat myself on the back. I said this is the Gomez year, and boy, has it been the Gomez year. He looks really good. So RSL, with Philadelphia having to think about playing back-to-back against Seattle with an already set roster because it was a postponed game, I think it makes things difficult for Philadelphia, and I think RSL gets the win.
Copa Tejas, FC Dallas, Houston Dynamo. The Juiceboxers think it's going to be a dead draw. They're both even numbers on either side. Minnesota favored at home slightly, hosting Sporting. Nashville at home because they're playing San Jose, favored at home. And then LAFC, the late game against Portland. LAFC favored at home at a -189.
Ooh, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. What's the draw on that one?
+343 in the composite.
I don't know if they'll draw again because it's been draw after draw after draw. But for those numbers, man, I might take it. Look, am I bold enough to take Portland at LAFC when, they have problems of their own? No, not really. LAFC hasn't been brilliant, or, this team that's just unbelievable. I think that eventually, when the summer window ends, we'll be singing another tune. But for now, man, I could take that draw between Portland and LAFC for sure. I think Portland, again, there's a lot of things to like about Portland, but a lot like LAG, a lot like what was the other thing we talked about, having no defense. Well, Austin is just a mess in general, but in Miami, same thing, pretty good offensively, not so much defensively. Portland has those same issues, especially in midfield. Diego Charay, you're starting to finally see that the fountain of youth has maybe drawn out. I mean, you're starting to see him slow down, and he just passed Wondolowski for most matches for one particular club, and he's been a legend. He's been so good, but you're starting to see that age hit. So I think defensively they've struggled, but on offense, man, again, love Evander. I think Felipe Mora is starting to come through for him, and if that guy gets hot, it gives you a different type of scorer up top. So yeah, I think this could be a draw. It's going to be a fun one. Give me the goals just for fun. What's the goals on this one?
All right, the goals on this one. Where did I do it? Oh, there it is. Wrong tab, wrong computer. All right, so LAFC and Portland. We'll start with 3.5, just as a base, as a knowledge base here. So 3.5, you're at a +140.
Mm-hmm.
4.5, you're at a +301.
No.
So you're gonna go safe at 3.5 at +140.
Yep, give me the draw and give me the 3.5. I think that's a solid pick, and we'll see how that goes. But we have been doing pretty good, man. That LAG plus the goals really did well for me. So I think we've done good, man. I'm excited. We're on a roll here. Let's keep it going.
All right. So what's going on Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports?
All right, Soccer Bar will be back here in just a few minutes. I don't have the rundown right in front of me, but we're going to be getting into, obviously, the big win by Columbus. We're going to break that down. We're going to go in depth. We're going to hear the protagonist there. We're going to hear from Wilfred. We're going to hear from Cucho. We're going to talk about the next upcoming MLS week, of course. Talk about Javier Arreaga, what some of his teammates, say about his departure, the impact he could have over there. In our Pulso Sports, you could also find Brian Smetzer being very spicy this week, coming at the press guys, talking about moving on from that meltdown. You could also hear Stefan Fry talking about the similar things. And I will be adding that X space we had yesterday. It was so much fun. So many people were able to hop on, talk about their concerns on Craig Weibel, their concerns on the team, what's going on. Jeremiah was on, talked for a long time. So that was really fun. I'm going to put the audio into a video, and we're going to put that in our YouTube channel. So check that out. We should have that up by the evening of today.
Looking forward to it, as always, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us here, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, my friends. Have a good one. Enjoy it.